Hello everybody, this is Muzaffar and welcome to the 7th video of my Echo Framework series. In this video, we will create a user entity and its repository. Alright, so let's go and open user.go file from entities package. So we already created this one, and here let's create a new struct called user. Let's create a new type called user, and it's going to be a struct type, and in here we are going to add all the properties available in database table. So if we look at users migration, let's go and copy paste it here for reference. So this what this entity will do is it is basically a map for our database table. So it will contain all the fields which are available in our database table. So let's start with ID, and it is going to be your type int. Set first name, it is string. Let's set last name. This is going to be time.time, and in database it is a timestamp, which is why time.time will work. Updated it will also be time.time. So yeah, we have mapped all of our all the attributes for our user table. Let's save it, and yeah, let's close this. This is it, and now we just need to add the database tag for it to work. We can also verify it from SQL X package. SQL X. So if we go there, we can see an example here. So you see for an entity it was using this tag here, which is called db. So let's go ahead and edit for our struct. I'll select the fields and right click and click go add tags to struct. So just to avoid adding it manually, I'll remove this omit empty, and I'll replace this JSON with db tag so that it is understood by that JSX package while querying the database, right? So yeah, that's about it for user entity. Let's since we are here, let's add a comment. Since it is an exported struct, right? So we need to add a comment here, represents user in database table. That's enough. Now let's go and create a repository. So go to repository and open this user repository file, and in there we need to add a new repository struct. Let's do user repo struct. This will basically contain a database connection that will be used by all the methods we will add to this struct. So yeah, that is there. Let's add a function which we will use from our main file to initialize this repository. So func new user repo, right? So I'll keep the same name as the struct, just add new keyword before it, right? So this is going to be a function and it will return a pointer to this user repo struct, and it will also return it, right? So yeah, and let's go back to the main file, and we can see so the thing is we need to pass database connection to it, to this new user repository function, and let's see the definition of the connection. So if we hold on the connect method, we can see it is returning the db variable as type of SQLx.db. Let's copy it and let's go back to user repository and pass here db.sqlx, and it has automatically imported the package for us upon save. So since it is there, we need to use it in this struct, but before we do that, let's add it here as well. So I will call it db, and it is going to be a pointer to SQLx.db because this db that we are going to pass to it is of type SQLx.db, right? So now that it is done, let me right click and fill it. Alright, so this db is added here. So now if we call it from main and provide db, this will be initialized with that db connection. So yeah, this new user repo function is now ready. Let's go and create a new function which will be used to get a single user from the database, right? So let's add a new receiver function for this user repository struct. So I'll call it as R, and it is going to be of type pointer, and I'll call it user, and this will just give me a single user, and by single user I want to receive this user object back. So I'll just pass it as user from entities and since we will be querying from database, right, so it will also return an error. So let's keep it, let's return like user and an error. So now here let's query and return this user. So before we query, we need to create a new user variable of type entities.user, and the SQL the query will basically populate this with a user from the database, right? So we can see we have db here, and we can access it from r.db, and from db we can access this method called get, and you see this method basically returns an error, and it accepts 3 parameters. Destination is will be an struct will be a struct that we have just created, and it is of type entities.user. So let's edit, and finally we need to add the SQL query, right? So for this, we need to write SQL query, select the style from users. Remember the table name was users, where id equals to, so we add this parameter, and then here we have to pass id, and we were supposed to receive id from the user, from whoever will be calling this. Ideally service will be calling this repository method. So let's edit id of type int. So we will receive id here, and we'll use that id to query a user from the database, right? So this seems good. Let's now return user and an error if there is any, right? So that is good. So when this query is executed, right, this user will be populated because we passed it here as a reference, and if there was no error, then we will get error as nil, and this one will have user object from database, right? And yeah, let's go ahead and add one more method, and this method will return all the users, and it is not going to accept any parameters, and it will return a slice of user, right? So it will return multiple users, right? And for this one we can use another method inside SQLX that is called select, and select is also accepting 3 parameters. Similar to previous one, it is also accepting the destination and a query, right? So let me remove this one, and here I'll keep it as select style from users, because this time we need multiple users, and let's call this as users after user slice, because we are expecting multiple users to be returned from the select, right? And let's return it, and everything else will look the same. So this method will return all the users from database, right? Let's add another method to update to insert a user. So this will be called insert, and it is not going to return anything other than an error. So if we receive an error, we will just we will return it, and with insert we need to pass a user object as a parameter. I'll call it user, and it will be of type user entities.user. Okay, so we will pass this to this method, and let's remove this. We won't be needing this, and here let's only keep the error, and this time we need to use another method from SQLX called named exec. So if we read about it, let's say, so basically we can pass we can write a query and we can pass named parameters in there, right? And they will be replaced with the struct basically. So you see previously we used $1, that was a parameter, but it was not a named parameter. But this time it will be a named parameter. You will see here. So let me remove this from here. Let's see how many parameters it accepts. So query, then arguments, right? So let's write a query. The insert query. This is going to be insert into users, and we need to insert like in all the columns. Let's say we need to insert in following columns, because ID will be automatically populated for us, and same to ID created it and updated it will be populated for us as well. Because if you remember, the default was now, so we don't need to do it by from our side. It will be done for us. So yeah, let's keep the bracket, and here we need to add first name, last name, email, and status. And I'm getting error. Yeah, because I'm only accessing one variable, but it is returning two variables. So let's complete the query before we touch other things. So that is about the columns, and for values I need to add named parameters. So remember previously we were using this $1, $2 onwards. This time we will use named parameters, because in the end we are going to pass this user struct, and this is the one, and it will basically automatically inject the values replacing these name parameters. So the first one I'll keep it as first name, second is last name, email, and then status. So I have to keep same names as I have given the tags here, so it will know how to replace them, right? So I think that's about it. Yeah, so let's handle the error here. We need to return an error. If we don't have any error, we will just return null, and we don't need to use the result, right? So I'll just keep underscore there, because I'm not going to do anything with the result. So if we received an error, that means insert was not successful. Otherwise, in case of nil, it is inserted in the database, right? So yeah, let's copy this and add another method that is called update, and this with this method we will just update user, right? So I'll again keep this same parameter, because we will pass a user object of type entities.user with updated data, and we'll just use it to update the existing record of user. And for update we will still use named exec, and just update the query here. So it is going to be update users, then set first name equals to again the name parameter, first name and last name, and copy this, equals to last name, email, and status. instead of values we'll just add the where statement, because we are updating a single record, and it will be id equals to id, right? So again, these placeholders here will be replaced by uh, values coming with a user parameter. So yeah, everything else will be same. Okay, nice. Let's copy this again and let's add the last method that will be used to delete a user. So I'll call it as delete, and we won't be passing the user object here. We'll just pass id, and it will be a type int. This will be a user id, right? And in here we will only use the exec, because you see with named exec, it will be expecting some user object or any other object with these db tags, right? So since we don't have this in this id, so we don't have to use that named exec. We'll just use a standard exec. And let's add delete query here. So delete from users where id equals to, this time we'll use this normal dollar type parameter. So here I'll pass id, and yeah, so this should be it basically for all the methods. So the user, let's add comment since we are here. User will fetch a user from database and return it, and users, right? So users will fetch all the users from database and this one will insert a new user into the database. This one lastly we have delete. We'll delete the user, delete a user from right? So yeah, our repository is ready. One last thing we can do is later we need to test this repository as well, right? So we will be using it into a service. We will be injecting this into a service. So if we are going to test the service like unit test, we need to have a mock for the repository. So let's add interface. So the interface we will be creating, we will later create mocks for it, so we don't have to use this concrete implementation. We can use mock instead, right? So let's add a type. Let's call it user repository, and it is going to be of type interface, and this will basically contain all of these methods. Let's add them quickly. So the user and users, inserted them, copy that, and lastly the delete one. So yeah, this repository, this interface will be user repository abstraction. So let's add comment here as well. Contains provides actions for manipulating users in the database. So yeah, this is good. Let's also add comment to these comments. Repository. Let's keep this comment for now, and finally let's add comment to this one as well. Like it is good practice to add comment to the exported functions, variables or constants, right? So this, thinking of some good comment here. So this user repository creates user and instead of returning this, we can also replace it with this interface, because this user repo is already implements user repository interface, right? Because it contains all the functions in here. So basically we can replace it here as well. And since it is interface, we don't have to provide a pointer. Interface is of type pointer. So yeah, we should be good to go with this. Let's verify user entity. Yeah, everything seems good. Alright, so that's about it for this video. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and I'll see you in next video.